All right, we are live.
Awesome. Welcome back, John.
Thanks.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, I forgot. I wasn't here last. Yeah, I was traveling last week.
Yep.
So, I'm back finally. It was a little bit too long. Barcelona is pretty cool, but it was just a little bit too long. So I was ready to be back. So,
hey guys.
Hey Chuck.
Hey JavaScript Jabber. Is it cold? Is it getting pretty cold out there already?
No, it's warm outside. It's just the AC's turned up too high in it. For some reason, my office gets cooler than everywhere else. So
Nice.
I just throw on a hoodie.
Those days are not far away, man. Shit, summer is over.
That's true.
Sucks.
Manny, what are you talking about? Man, it goes from like 72 degrees to like 69 degrees. It's such
Ask
a
John
bummer,
about it.
man.
It's true. I was freezing my ass off at Pat Flynn's thing. It's because unexpected cold is the worst. It's like.
Yeah,
funny
that's
thing is-
when it gets down to 67 degrees, Josh.
Yeah.
Unexpectedly, it drops by 2.5 degrees. It's like, oh ho ho.
Yeah.
What did you do?
Well, it's weird in San Diego. It's actually like most of the year, it's like on the edge of like your best bet in San Diego is to wear layers, right?
All the time.
Because it will get like it's not like it gets cold, but it gets uncomfortably cold, just below the comfort threshold of like wearing a short sleeve shirt, right?
Yeah.
And so it's like it just dips right down into that, like, what's it like, maybe like 72 degrees.
You need a jacket all the
Yeah.
time.
And then you're just like you're dressed for the warm, and it was warmer earlier, but then it's just slightly uncomfortably cold, right?
Yeah.
So
Yeah, I remember the traffic and conversion a couple of years up on the roof. It was that way. It was like just a slight breeze.
The delta is really in the sun. So if you're in the sun,
Yeah.
you'll be fine. As
Right.
soon as you get in the shade, you are cold. Like
Yeah.
you're literally freezing because the winds are blowing and there's no sun anymore. So now there's a drop of like 5 degrees from that, and that changes everything.
Yeah, you've pretty much summed up every Californian I know. There's this range, right? There's comfortably warm, which is 70 degrees and above. And then 69 is just colder than
Whoa.
comfortable. And then 68 and lower is freezing. Freezing. There is going to be ice forming at the end of my nose, freezing. Oh my gosh, I'm going to die freezing.
yeah. It's all about preparation, right? It's always it's
that's
managing
pretty cool.
expectations. So I mean,
It's the contrast principle, right? So here in Pennsylvania, we go from like over this summer it hit 95. Like heat index was like 105, 110 degrees some days, and then we'll go all the way down to, I mean, last winter we had minus 15, I think.
yeah.
Plus the wind, like we had like
Yeah.
30
we get
below,
that here,
40
too.
below wind chills. It was like, it's like 120. And so our closets are like, you've got to have like, the Eskimo clothes and the beach clothes. It's just-
Well, it gets humid out there in Pennsylvania, too, doesn't it?
yeah, it does. Yep.
Because here it'll get like, -5, -10, but it's dry. And so you just put a coat on and it doesn't like cut through your layers of clothes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
When I was in Italy, it got down to freezing a couple of times. And then it was so humid that you'd be wearing a coat and you'd get a good wind. And it's like, man, it feels like I'm not wearing anything.
Yeah. Yeah. Freezing. All right.
So I'm currently I'm not on my usual laptop today. So
Oh, no.
I think did I tell you guys that the bottom of my laptop case was bulging? I think
I read
So-
that email. I actually read one of your emails, Josh.
Oh, okay. There we go. Yeah. So the bottom of my case had started to bulge about a year ago, and I noticed it. And then
What's up, buddy?
it had gotten to the point where
I'm gonna call.
it had gotten to the point where the
You're
little
welcome.
little rubber feet no longer sat on the desk,
Yeah.
and I could just sort of spin it. So I took
Wait.
it in. I
That's
took it
like-
into
That's like strangely suspicious of like a battery problem that's going to explode.
yeah, I
It's
know
like-
exactly.
You
So I
should have
took it
just
in.
waited for it to pop out the baby.
Yeah. Yeah, it's like the alien. It was about to. Yeah, so I took it in, and they're like, I was like, yeah, I think the battery's swelling, and they're like, yeah, and then, but they were telling me it was going to take 5 to 7 days to get it replaced. So, I was like, man, that's not, I can't do that. Like, how am I going to make this work? And the guy's like, well, tell you what, sometimes what people will do in this situation is they'll buy a laptop to just kind of evaluate it, you know, see if you like the new model of the Mac, and then, you know, you can decide when your other laptop comes back, you can decide what you want to do. I was like, all right, we'll do that. So $1,700 MacBook model here. So I don't have any USB ports, so I'm using the headphones.
I have complained about that on this show. I won't do it again.
It seems to have a shitty camera. Take it back.
Yeah, exactly. I really don't like it. I really don't like it.
The keyboard is horrible.
The keyboard is terrible. The new, I love the size. The size is great. It's so light. But they're going to replace, when they replace the battery on those, because it's basically welded to the chassis. Like they gut the whole thing. They're replacing the keyboard, part of the chassis, and possibly the back plate if it's bowed. And it's only going to cost me $200. I'm basically going to have half a new laptop. And so I'm like, the only thing that was bugging me about it was that it was getting kind of slow, and it never really occurred to me that might be an issue with the heat. Like whenever I would start up Excel, which I've been doing a lot lately, it would just everything would just bog down, and it was ridiculous. I'd have to force quit things. And the guy was telling me, yeah, there's like throttling. The heat sensors are in the battery, so it'll throttle the system down when the battery's going. So
when the battery's about to explode.
Yeah, the battery's about to explode.
You've gone on the airplanes, and they're like, if you have any kind of cell phones that have bad batteries, or you know that your batteries, and you're like, oh, right here. How's this? Is bulging?
Yeah.
I think you're okay, sir. Just
as long as you don't have a bulge in your pocket, it's all good.
That's not C4. It's just the battery, I promise. So, but yeah, so I'm probably gonna get it back next week, and I think it'll basically be. I mean, it should be just as fast. Like I think that should fix the heat and processor issues. And I had an old battery when I got it, because it's a 2012, and I got it, and it was 3 years old when I got it. So it's gonna be like a brand new machine pretty much. So I'll be happy to get it back. This is I honestly just really don't like it. I don't know, when I have to replace the other one, I'm not sure what I'm going to do. Hopefully it'll be good for a few more years.
So you're using a 2012 laptop?
Yeah. It's the 13-inch MacBook Pro, and it was spec'd out. It was top.
That just goes to show the kind of work Josh does on a daily basis nowadays compared to his programming days.
That's true. I guess we could all use Chromebooks.
Do not upgrade. Trust me.
Yeah. I mean, mainly it's nothing super processor intense. So if I don't have to do any video work. So.
I don't know what was happening. Like last time I was trying to watch some videos, going through a playlist, and every once in a while my computer will just it will slow down to the point where it won't play YouTube videos.
Whoa.
And I'm like, what the fuck? It's a $5,000 laptop. It's got the top of the line SSDs. It's got a full GTX 780 graphics card in there. I don't know, and 64 gig of RAM.
Whoa!
Just I'm just what the heck? How could a little tiny crap laptop not have this problem? But I don't know. So
that sucks.
I'm not buying a custom laptop. I mean, anymore. I'm just.
Well, there are no good market alternatives right now. Like the MacBook has such bad keyboard, touchpad sucks. It's just the whole stupid touch bar on the top is ridiculous. It's
this one doesn't have the touch bar. The MacBook doesn't have. Bless you.
Oh, you have the MacBook. Oh my god.
Yeah, not the MacBook Pro. Yeah.
No wonder your camera sucks. It's probably the lowest end of everything.
Yeah. So.
Yeah, the MacBook is pretty crap. Yeah.
I didn't get the $3,000 MacBook Pro. I got the $1,700 one. So, but yeah, honestly, I'm kind of glad because the size is really nice, and I wouldn't mind it if the keyboard was comparable and it had some actual ports on it. I wouldn't mind it so much. But the port thing is ridiculous.
I would take the old chassis with the new chipset and everything. I would buy that any day. But
have you seen the commercials? There's like commercials on Netflix with the guy. It's like I think it's a Samsung commercial, and they're mocking Apple. And the guy goes in. He's talking to the genius, and the guy's like, "Well, what if I want to plug in my headphones to my iPhone?" And he's like, "Well, you need a dongle." And then he's like, "A dongle?" And he's like, "Yeah." And then he's like, "Well, what if I want to charge while I listen to something on my headphones?" He's like, "Oh, then you need this other dongle. It's like a double dongle." And the guy's like, "Double dongle? That sounds explicit." It's awesome. I love that commercial so much. But anyway,
you can't say dongle. That can get you thrown out of conferences. Out of PyCon.
Yeah, good old PyCon. The thing is that like nobody remembers the names of the people involved. It's just PyCon has a black eye now.
Yeah.
So I'm getting back to work finally. To transition to work topics. So that's good.
John, isn't that a 4-letter word for you?
I know it is. It is. But I've been shooting videos this whole time, so it's that's all good. But I try to get back in. I'm getting back into the system. But I interviewed James Clear this week, so that was
excellent.
Nice.
Yeah, he's got a book coming out called Atomic Habits. So
nice.
So that was cool. That was one of my people I've always wanted to interview. And then I got my slides done for FinCon. So what I did though is I made the slides. What's that?
That reminds me, I'm going to be at Microsoft Ignite. It's in Orlando the same week.
Oh, really? Okay, we'll have to meet up for for dinner or something. Yeah. Okay. But I got the slides done. So I'm doing a talk on YouTube, like being prolific on YouTube, and like how to do it in systems and kind of examples and stuff. And then what I decided to do this time was I made all the slides, and then we'll see how this goes. I did a Fiverr gig for like $50, and I'm gonna have them make it look nice.
All right.
Or as nice as they can for $5.
No, I paid $50 for it.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, we'll see. But yeah, that's.
So you gave them your keynote, and then they're gonna convert that into a better version.
Yeah. Hopefully. And
yeah, they'll Photoshop your face over his.
Exactly.
That's all you need. That's the upgraded version.
Yeah. So I don't know. We'll see what happens with that. But, it'll be interesting. But as I was thinking about it too, like I was formulating like the strategy, which I think that Josh, I think we've seen this strategy working as like the optimal strategy. Because I used to talk about like two strategies, right? The basically swing for the fences strategy, where you produce like epic content, but you only produce it very infrequently. Like, This American Life is a common example of that. It's like super high quality, but they have a show once a week. I mean, and I think they used to have a show once a month, but it takes like 15 people, it's like,
right.
But they get like, tons of viewers. And then the second strategy being super prolific, producing a ton of content, and that you're getting a lot of base hits that eventually grows and grows and grows. But I think that what I talked about what I'm going to talk about in the talk is, those basic two strategies and how being prolific is important, but a hybrid strategy of like an 80-20 or more like a 90-10, where 90% of your content is prolific. So you're producing a ton of content, but 10% of it is epic. Right, which is kind of what we've been doing with Simple Programmer with the blog, I think, right, with the SEO and stuff. It's like we've got those few epic pieces there, those outliers, and those ones are not even. I mean, the content itself is actually even not that epic. It's like epic effort, like it's SEO'd, that's really the secret there. And it's definitely higher quality content, but I think that's really the best content strategy now is that kind of hybrid approach where you're doing both.
Well, and the stuff that you're producing prolifically is really more for your existing audience.
Mm-hmm.
And then occasionally you'll get something that unexpectedly grabs a huge new piece of audience. Like that's what happened with the top 10 programming languages for 2018. Like that was kind of something that that was just a video transcript.
Exactly, yeah.
And you may have SEO'd that. I think Rodrigo may have SEO'd that title, but it was the but that's like now our number one or number two post. It brings in 10% of all of our traffic.
Exactly, yeah. But we got to hit some more of those, I think, with Simple Programmers. Just come up with more. That JavaScript one needs to be SEO'd. I think more link backs to it. But
yeah, I've got our SEO team looking at that. So
yeah,
I have a list of about 6 posts that are high priority for them to build links to when they can, and they can't always just determine what. Sometimes they'll get like an agreement to get a link placed, but they won't. They can't specify what the post will be because it just doesn't fit. But that's on the list of the short list of ones that I want them to promote. So they're going to be working on it.
Do you guys have an editor?
Yes.
What kind of editing do you have editing guidelines?
Yeah.
Yeah, we work with Elisa from craftyourcontent.com, and she's got a team, and there's at least 2 or 3 members of her team that work on our stuff off and on, and they have like a style guide and a whole editorial process and everything for everybody to go through. So it's a well-oiled machine at this point.
But it's funny though. It's like the content doesn't matter as much as the link backs.
Yeah, well, the topic, it's the combination of the topic being something that gets searched a lot, and then building the SEO around it. That's really the major. Those are the 2 major factors. It's like topic selection. It's kind of almost a joke, but really what matters is the title, the title and the backlinks.
The title and the backlinks. Yep.
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah,
So,
but because you can spend so much effort and energy creating content, and it's good for your existing audience, like we were saying.
Yeah.
But like the most effective thing is just to pick a few good, SEO keywords to go after.
Yep.
Build that content, hopefully make that epic content, and then backlink the hell out of it, and that's going to be more effective than any other thing that you could possibly do.
Yeah, so. What I typically encourage people to do now is like the kind of content that we used to publish on Simple Programmer that used to bring in traffic doesn't bring it anymore. That's like the stuff to use for guest posts.
Yeah.
Where you're getting backlinks. They're like they're easier. Like the guest posts can be easier to write. And then you have like Brian Dean's strategy is he basically has 30 articles on his site that he's constantly updating.
Yeah.
And they're really good. They're epic. They're in depth. And he's not producing content all the time. And if you produce a ton of content, it can actually hurt you because the more you have out there, it dilutes your authority for your domain gets spread across all your content. So if you've got 10,000 pages, it actually dilutes it can dilute your overall kind of like the authority for the site. So it's better to have. The game has shifted on that. It's better to have less but higher quality. Prune out the losers.
Yeah. But I think it's possible to engineer at this point, like to really double or triple, maybe quadruple the traffic just by keep on engineering these posts with the link backs. So, at least from what we've seen so far, right? Like with the success of that, it's pretty amazing how big of
it's
kind of disappointing how big of a difference it is, because like the second best one we have is
terrible.
If
anyone listening wants to write a blog post about interviewing questions, please reach out to josh@simpleprogrammer.com because I'm trying to get someone. We have this post. I literally created it as a placeholder. There was a guy who had a post that ranked pretty high for top interviewing question, or just programming interview questions, I think was the keyword. And I went to him and I was like, hey, could you just do another version of that article for my site? He was like, okay. So he just basically did the exact same thing that he already had. He I mean, it wasn't article spinning, but it was, same basic idea, like just copy something that's working. And now it's like our #1 blog post. It's ranking, and it sucks. It was a placeholder. I was validating a theory, and it worked. And now I want to get somebody. So I'm trying to get Parker from Interview Cake. I emailed him to talk to him about doing it, and then I get his autoresponder. I'm at Burning Man. Like, okay, I guess it'll be a while. But
I was tempted to do my own to make it like, 300 questions and like pages of, what I mean? Because that's what we really need is something like where it's like 300 questions. Like it's by far, it's like 10 times better than the best. And it's super comprehensive. And then eventually, it's one of those pillar contents or the tree where it links to. It starts off with the answers on other people's sites, but eventually all the answers become pages on the site, on our site, and then that's the. I think that'll kill it. So.
Yeah, that's where I want to go with it. I just haven't. I've put it out there a few different places, and so far nobody's taken me up on it. It would be good exposure for somebody. I mean, it's going to be like if somebody were to write this blog post. Like, we'll give you a link to whatever it is that you're doing, and you'll get that page traffic. Will get like hundreds of thousands of page views a year.
But it has to be epic. It has to be essentially like a book, a blog post. You know what I mean? Like like a 10,000 word or more blog post, right?
I guess I'm not 100% clear what you're looking for, though. Is it just a list of interview questions then, or?
Yeah, basically. I mean, basically, right now what it is it's literally like it's like the title is top 50 interview questions or top 50 programming interview questions or something like that.
I see.
And it's like header, maybe like a sentence or two, and then like a link to an answer somewhere. So it's really like a table of contents almost.
And we're not even worried if you try and steal our idea because you can't outrank us.
Yeah, that's what being #1 will do for you.
Yeah.
How much does the editing cost you guys, and how much do they do for you? Like, what all do they do?
Well, I don't want to.
Let's not discuss the exact price on that, just because it's not ours to like. But
we're actually not like she told me that we're like her lowest priced client because we got in early and they've grandfathered us and all that stuff.
We should take this show off air so we can talk about some private issues.
It's like I mean it's basically an inexpensive part-time person.
Yeah.
Basically. Like it's not a lot of money.
How much time does it take to edit a 2,000 word blog post or a 3,000 word blog post for them?
Well, the way they do it, probably several hours because they do a lot of. So the original agreement that she made with John was John wanted this to be an outlet for people that were getting started with blogging. And so they do a lot of hand-holding. Elisa was telling me they do a lot of hand-holding with new writers to kind of teach them, how to structure their posts. So it's not like copy. It's not like copy editing, like where you're just, fixing commas and stuff. It's like developmental edit where they give them feedback and say like, this is broken. Here's how you fix it. So yeah, I mean, I wouldn't be surprised if they're spending 2 to 4 hours or more per article just on the editing and stuff. That would be mine. Yeah, it might be more. I've done this type of work a lot, and it's time consuming. Like it's easier as an editor to fix it yourself than it is to work with somebody over 3 drafts and get them to do it.
It'd be interesting, Josh, would be like to augment the process, like to take what we're learning from the SEO team, right? That the consultants, and basically distill that down. Like, what is their process? Have that be part of the process for like for the article writers, for the writers for the blog, and then basically like offer some kind of like reward system of like, if you get this many link backs, or we either make it link back based or page view based, but maybe link back based would be fine enough. Like, and you'll get like this, stipend or whatever it is, like, or prize or competition or something like that. Where I think that'd be kind of cool to have them actually doing the link backs, like you're responsible for link backing your articles or.
promoting your own content.
Yeah.
I like it.
Because not just promoting it, but doing the link back, the actual SEO on it. That's the key.
So did you see that membership site transition, Josh?
Mhm.
I saw the link. I didn't actually. It was a video, right? I didn't have a chance to watch it when it came through. Can you get what was the approach?
His approach was for anyone who bought anything previously. So he's moving everything, the whole shebang, to his membership only platform.
Okay.
And he sold courses that were like $2,500, $1,500, all that stuff. And now what he's saying is, you will still have lifetime access to the courses that you paid for. Not only that, that will also give you, credit for the membership because you're a loyal customer and you bought before from us. So I'll give you credit for whatever in proportion to whatever you paid for the annual membership or the monthly membership or whatever they sign up for. So that was probably the easiest, not easiest, but in my opinion, the cleanest. Because everything else is
Who's this?
not clean enough. Did I send you guys the list? You saw that, Chuck? No?
Yeah, Sean West, right?
Sean West. I don't know who the guy is. I just stumbled upon that post. And I was like, whoa, that's really cool way of looking at it. Because I was agonizing over it as well. Like, if I have to go membership, it's just going to be so challenging to figure out all the different, like, how do you take care of the people from the past? How do you make them feel secure? And he has it down better than anyone else so far I've seen.
Yeah, I was thinking about this whole thing with the courses and the membership, right? I finally read Blue Ocean Strategy, which is a really good book. Really short too. It's pretty good. So, but what I realized was that Udemy is Blue Ocean. That's what they did. They came in and they fucked everyone, right? Basically, because they came in and they created a value disruption, right? A value innovation.
Yeah, was value innovation.
Yeah.
Right.
So because what, like, if you look at it, what was happening was you had online training, you had Pluralsight like Netflix type of subscription places, right? Which was the Pluralsight, lynda.com, all of these like monthly ones. And then you had us, right? And the people that were doing what we were doing, which were basically like selling $300 courses, right?
Right.
And then they came in and they said, okay, value disruption. What we're going to do, Blue Ocean, we're going to get a bunch of new customers. We're going to make the price, competitive to paying like a monthly subscription, except it's a la carte. And then they came in and used that business model with the marketplace model, and bam, just completely demolished, changed the entire industry. Because I think that's really what's, I don't know. It's still a theory, but I think that's what's screwing sales.
I think so. That's just how markets evolve too. That is inevitable. That you will not get away from that. Like there will never be a market that's immune to that sort of thing. And so it was. I was kind of expecting it to happen. It was weird the way it happened so quickly. Like it seemed like there was a lag. And it didn't happen, and then it just fell off the cliff.
Yeah.
And it was really so that the falling off the cliff. Like if it had been more gradual, I would have actually had more of an idea what was going on.
John, don't try to take the blame away from yourself. If that's this is not the forum for that.
Well, there is an aspect to that too, right? Because one Blue Ocean that we had, well, okay, so any business that's a celebrity business is a Blue Ocean, right? Automatically, because there's only one of you, right? And it's always different. Like, you know what I mean? You are automatically Blue Ocean if you make a celebrity business, because what you're offering is different than anyone else, because it's unique,
we lost
right?
We lost our USP.
Yeah, so there is an aspect of that, but again, to healthily grow the business, it's better to not have that be your USP if you want to.
Yeah.
So
Right.
So I've been thinking a lot about this week, and what I've really wanted to do all along was to not replace John, not try to replace John, but build off of like the traffic and the lists and everything that we have, and build something that is more along the lines of a Pluralsight. And I'm starting to think that that is too big of a jump, and that I actually do need to step into the gap more, and possibly, like, I'm thinking I might need to. I'm really leaning towards doing a podcast, like spinning up a Simple Programmer podcast,
I'll be back.
build. Okay, really like work on my personal brand and connection with the audience for like the next year. Because when I bring people in, the problem is right now when I bring people in, there's not a huge amount of trust that I can transfer. Versus with John, like John had this huge long history, and he could just bring somebody else in, and it was an immediate like, okay, this guy's part of the club. So I'm kind of thinking that, I mean, I'm going to continue with what I've been doing with the membership, and trying to launch a few courses and stuff here. But I think a big focus is going to need to be the personal the emails, the daily emails are definitely working the way that I want to. I'm starting to get I'm getting less like crappy responses of like, can you teach, how do I learn .NET type of responses, and I'm starting to get more in-depth, thoughtful responses. I had a guy email me and say, like, I was really skeptical when I first saw your name, and now I kind of think of you and John as like, he's kind of elevated me up to that pedestal almost. And then I had another guy email me that I forwarded to John that was like begging to be let into the membership. He missed the membership, and he's like begging, pleading on hands and knees to be let into the membership.
Yeah.
So it definitely seems like the momentum's starting to build a little bit more, and I'm thinking that I need to just double down on that, and I'm really leaning towards doing a podcast. I think that because that would just give me the longer format. I think the emails are good. Is that daily contact, and then the podcast will give me the chance to just build a deeper relationship with the people that are actually going to end up becoming customers.
Yeah.
I've realized I've been slicing the list up, and we only have we have like about 91,000 subscribers right now. I've done some aggressive pruning lately, but we have like 91,000 subscribers. We only have about 20,000 US subscribers. And I looked at the people that were, if they have a lead score of at least 100 in Drip, those subscribers are worth $43 each.
Oh,
and
wow.
the rest of the list is probably worth less than $5.
Yeah.
So like basically the core of our business is really about 4,200 people.
Right.
So I'm looking for ways that I can deepen the relationship with those people. And I think like I'm really leaning towards doing a podcast, and it would probably be an interview format type of, I might even do like a panel type thing like you do, Chuck, but probably we'll be waiting on that a little bit, maybe later this year, spin that up. And that would also, I kind of need to get a little bit of a content production team put together so we're not so reliant on Rodrigo.
Yeah.
So that way, I can have a separate, I think I would like to have a separate like podcast editing production that's not tied to Rodrigo, because he's fairly maxed out right now.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree. That would be good. And it's just good to have that anyway, so that we're not totally
Right.
reliant on Rodrigo. So
Yeah. Yep.
yeah, it'd be interesting too. I wonder, like, maybe this is a good test if you want to do a podcast, is to test, having it run under Chuck.
I've actually emailed. Yeah, I emailed Chuck. I would seriously love to just be able to just do recording and get help with like scheduling the podcast and everything. Like, if that was a service, like if you got your service to that level where, I would be like, okay, this is the type of guests I want.
I was going to talk about that today, but yeah, go ahead.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, like if it's the type of thing where I can just show up and do a little prep work, show up, interview the guest, and then drop a Zoom file, an MP3 somewhere.
Yeah.
Then I would just love that, and I would definitely, like we do have people that were sponsoring the old podcast,
Right.
So it would potentially, we could work something out there. Yeah, do a split.
Yeah, and then it'd be good because we could bring them, our sponsors, and then if Chuck is able to fill the slots with his sponsorship, essentially we would just turn over the sponsorship filling to Chuck, right, and then have a revenue share, right? So it'd be like one of his podcasts, but it's the whole publisher model, right? Mm-hmm. He'd be the publisher of our podcast, and so he would be getting, we'd have a split between the revenue.
Yeah.
But that'd be cool, and that'd be actually a cool model for you to like test with us, Chuck. Because if you could do that like expands your reach. That takes things to the next level for you. Because now you can have podcasts that like, and it's such a value add, right? Because like thinking about it's like, if we can just if Josh could just show up with the mic, right? That like and produce a podcast, he's the talent essentially, and you're able to, your team is able to handle everything else. Then that's
So, I feel like you guys are trying to go back in a direction that you've already moved forward from. The guy I really like, I've been envying the most lately, is this guy I see at Pat Flynn's meetups every once in a while. Robert Farrington. He's the founder of College Investor. It's a blog, multi-author blog. He has grown that stuff tremendously just as a multi-author blog, and he's able to do shit ton of all sorts of marketing to the point where I think he's $1 million plus in revenue right now, gross, and they're already getting offers for like 6x multiples on that number. And it's really nothing. It's got nothing to do. I wonder if like there's any mention of Robert there on the whole freaking website anymore.
Well, there's a couple of things to keep in mind with this. The first one I would say is that it is in the financial industry, so it's a much more different and lucrative industry. The second one, which is probably actually more important, is the fact that his revenue is like 90% derived from affiliates and sponsorship. So he's not selling products which require trust, right? The moment that he's like $300 and I'll show you how to get out of debt, now there has to be a trust transfer. But if it's like, hey, there's this big ass company, Lending Tree, and this is where you can get a loan, and and that you've already heard of them, they're already a brand name, and this is who I recommend, or this is mentioned in this article. It's a totally different things.
I'm with you on both of those fronts. All I'm saying is he's been able to build a business and get it to the point where he is kind of sort of disassociated from the brand now. As in anyone can take over College Investor and run that business. And whether, the problem with the celebrity businesses that unfortunately I have built, you built, and I feel like you guys still want to go down the path, it's like you're still limited by yourself. You can say, it's a different industry. There is a different composition of how you get paid, but there's always angles in every industry of how you can get paid for, in the coding industry, because coding industry is not cheap either. There's really expensive leads for boot camps, etc., etc., etc. I think it's pretty dangerous to keep going down the path of celebrity business model unless you guys want to do that for a very long time.
Well, I mean, I don't mind. I like what I'm doing right now. If I could do what I'm doing right now, if I could do what I was doing right now and know that the business was going to grow for 5 or 10 years, I would be happy with that. I would like to. I do agree that I would like to not be you know, I would like to not be a celebrity so much, but I guess what I'm saying is I think that there might need to be a bridge. Like it's very hard to go from. I've been told by multiple people that they can't think of an example where a celebrity type business successfully transitioned and continued to grow in the absence of the celebrity.
But they didn't say that you have to substitute the celebrity with a new celebrity.
What's that?
Did they say that you have to substitute the celebrity with a new celebrity?
I know of a lot of examples where they've been able to hand off to a new celebrity. Yes. Zig Ziglar's business is an example that is like, well, after Zig Ziglar died, like it still exists, but it's like a shadow of what it was. I mean, if those guys know how to sell.
Yeah, but they're selling. They're not creating new Zig Ziglar content because Zig is not with us anymore.
Right.
So,
but they're still creating sales and marketing and stuff.
Yeah, they are, and they're working with people because Zig. So their company had other speakers and other names, and so they're still creating content that way. But Zig was by and far what they were selling the most of.
Yeah. So I'm not actually planning. What I'm proposing is not going whole hog again and like trying to replicate John. But what I'm saying is taking a half step back and working on establishing myself more with the audience, and then using that to bring in more voices where I can. This will be a good experiment actually, because this month we're launching. Jason Humphrey and I are launching the course on coding interviews, and so we'll see how effectively I can sell that. Basically, emails have to come from somebody. They're going to come from me for a long time.
They don't have to come just from you, though.
No, but every time we split off and have somebody else sending them, you're starting over again.
So remember the Dan Fagella interview? Did you guys listen to it?
Yeah, I did.
Fagella?
Yeah, and basically what he did was exactly what we tried, and it didn't work very well in our market.
Oh, it's a process, I'm assuming. But John made a pretty big splash about the whole thing compared to what he did. He kind of silently.
What Dan did was they built multiple tiny celebrity businesses.
Yeah,
but they did.
Dan kind of slowly but surely disappeared. Like initially it was all emails from Dan, then 50, like maybe 80% emails from Dan, then 60%, then 40%, then 20%, and then there's like no Dan. Right. Compared to John's nuclear explosion, which changed everything.
Well, if you think about it, it's not like from our perspective, it's a nuclear explosion, but from the customer's perspective, it's not really. Like my books are out there, right, with the brand, like soft skills and
books are separate, man. That's not because
it's all part of like in people's mind when they buy the books, they're like, oh, okay, this is John Sonmez and Simple Programmer, right? It's like people are still associating.
Now you're even more
videos are still on the site every week, right? Like new videos come out on the blog, so it's very much still like it's not disconnected as you think. The thing is, like, it's like, and here's the other thing is that will always probably be a part of Simple Programmer, right? Like my presence there, but it doesn't have to be real time, right? It's like there'll always be something from John here, right? But people don't know the timeline like we know the timeline, right? They just say, oh, this is the course that John made. This is right. Like, you see what I'm saying? Like, those are the type of things that that the way that the world sees it versus we see it as, oh, John's not really involved in Simple Programmer.
We never saw it like that until we looked at your numbers, and then we did the backward correlation and started to see it like that, right? Initially, we didn't really until those numbers started to say that's what happened. But that's already done. It's water under the bridge, so it's not going to change.
I was going to say,
yeah, but what I'm saying is, why do you guys want to repeat that again? Why not just, now that you've gone down the path?
Why create another celebrity? We're in like an unsatisfactory middle ground here.
Yeah, the way that I'm seeing it is that, so Simple Programmer for a long time was pretty much all about John. I mean,
Mhm.
you know, he was giving people what they wanted. He was teaching them what they wanted to know. You know, so in that sense, it was also all about the audience. But the audience was really, really tied in with John and John's message. And so I think what Josh is looking to do, and this makes sense to me, is that he's trying to step up and say, "Hey, look, you know what? We're doing some of the same things that John did. He's going to be a rallying point for John's audience, and then he can start leading things more toward, you know, being a more general, not so celebrity, because he doesn't have to
Right.
go all the way to the extreme that John did, you know, but he can be out there and, you know, still give people what they want, and then eventually, you know, work it so that it becomes what he wants it to become."
Yeah,
Yeah.
your analogy of Dan is actually a good counterpoint to what I'm trying to do, I think.
Yeah.
Because with John stepping away, like what we in hindsight, what we should have done is we should have been working on this for the last 2 years.
Mhm.
And we did take a few steps in that direction, but you know, like but having me take over, I should have taken over the emails like a year ago or 2 years ago, and started, and then that way John could have kind of handed things off to me. I could have started bringing in more voices, and it would have been like more gradual. And kind of what I think I might need to do is do like basically become Dan for a little while in order to facilitate the transition. What they were doing was very different too, because that was like what they were building was this, and I have not been able to get this to work in our market. They were building discrete funnels around Facebook advertising, bringing in cold traffic in the martial arts niche, which is like a red hot niche that is, you know, people just buy stuff like crazy. And so it didn't really matter. The relationships didn't matter. What mattered was like the cool moves that the instructor was going to present.
Well,
And with this type of thing,
always matters.
when you're talking about like somebody who you're going to like trust with your career, that's a little different than buying you know,
I am looking
moves
at
from a
it.
black belt.
I'm looking at it as this is your opportunity to, now that you've already transitioned from, so John was the king, right?
Right.
But Simple Programmer now has the opportunity to become the king maker. Don't start becoming a king again if you can actually be the king maker now. And
I guess that was my plan, and what I've seen so far is that every effort that I've made to not do that has failed, and every effort that I have made, every step I've made in the other direction has worked.
right, but then you're going backwards before you start going forwards again, compared to like, okay, now from this point we're just going to be king makers, and we keep pushing that. Over time you will figure out how to work that business model.
For a king to be a king, the subjects have to accept him.
Yeah.
That's why you become a king maker, not the king, though.
No, you can't do that. You have to build a brand. Like you have to have high touch.
You have to be the prophet. You have to be accepted as the prophet before you can be the king maker.
Well,
No,
besides
You
this,
can't just go.
And
You can't just go.
And Udemy,
like-
you don't know who's the king, but you
It's
know
different.
you don't know who's the king maker.
that's a SaaS.
Yeah, well, it's a SaaS,
essentially-
but you guys are in the same, more or less the same market space in some ways. You could get into that. You don't know who the king maker is behind the scenes. You just don't know. You just know all these different kings who are there, but the king maker is the real winner.
Yeah, but that's not the model, right? Like you have to have. You could do that with a different product, like different service model, where you're going more of a SaaS model. But that's not the heart of the business. And besides, like it's a mute point, because I'll tell you why. Because it doesn't matter. You could actually take my face and keep my branding on Simple Programmer completely and have me do nothing with it, right? So here's the thing. Time dilation, right? It's the time does not have to be it doesn't have to be real time, right? So this is kind of what I was saying before, but essentially you could take anyone's personal brand, right? And there's plenty of companies that do this. You know, we didn't realize it at the time, but basically, like, let's say that you have, okay, when people come into the system, right, they don't have a history, right? And really, like, if you look at from introduction to the brand, like first exposure to point of sale, right, that process could take like 2 years, right? Potentially. hopefully it happens faster than that. But what I'm saying is that essentially, like, someone's exposed to the brand, right? If you have 2 years worth of content to feed them that comes from someone's face, it doesn't matter who it is. Like, it could be a celebrity. It could be, we could have had 2 years of emails that were written by me or from me queued up, right? You could have 2 years of videos. You could have like all of this content queued up that you can expose them to, courses, all that stuff. And they don't know that it's like, for their experience, they're entering the timeline here and they're like, oh, you know, I've been, you know, learning about John or whatever whoever it doesn't have to be me, for 2 years, right? And building the trust and whatnot. So it's not like you have to, like, it's not like it's you're building a celebrity business and you're stuck in it, or you're building a non-celebrity business and you're free, right? You can be completely free in a celebrity business if you build up the queue of content, right? Because all that really matters in the end, as far as making money with the business, is introduction to point of sale, right? And having the content and building the trust between those 2 points, which you can pre-fill that content. You can have that content canned and ready to go. There's no reason why it has to be created in real time, right?
But your freedom is only 2 years long.
The biggest difference is saleability. It's going to be it would be very difficult to sell a celebrity business.
Sellability and scalability, both of them.
No. You look at, well, no, it's fine. You look at, like, okay, take whatchamacallit, I'm trying to think of a good one, like Maxwell Malt, like psycho-cybernetic stuff, right? Like, who's in charge of that right now? It's
Dan Kennedy.
Well, was Dan Kennedy, now it's Matt.
Okay, so that makes it an even better example, right? Because 2 owners have taken over it, and they just have a sequence. They just like they just sell like that exact same thing in the same system. It's his stuff. It's his.
What are they even selling?
They're selling courses now. Like, well, there's different things they're selling. Some is the book, some is courses, right? But they just have a sales sequence. Like, you don't have to have. Think of it as a funnel, right? Like, everything is a funnel. Everything is a funnel in business, right? It's like you have the entry point. You might just have a big, wide, long funnel, but you have the entry point, and then you have content, right? People don't know that it's not real time. It doesn't matter. It only matters that they're getting the nurture that they need in order to build the trust, in order to sell the thing. Like, it can be totally disconnected. In fact, a lot of Tony Robbins stuff is completely disconnected. He has nothing to do with it. He's still the face. He's still delivering the content, but he recorded this shit a long time ago, right? And then it's just being dripped out.
We know that there's no value, or the value in the Tony Robbins business will be vastly diminished if Tony Robbins were to die, or if Oprah were to die. Oprah's business doesn't really exist anymore the way we know it today. Right? No. It's vastly diminished. It's not like, oh, doesn't matter, Oprah is not here, but the business still is the same as it was before. And there are so few celebrity businesses that have really endured any kind of test of time. On the other hand, businesses that have not been celebrity-induced businesses have literally, there's probably like 1,000 to 1. Normal business versus celebrity business.
So here's what I'm seeing, though. You know, you bring up Oprah, and so Oprah went out and she actually built her own network, right? She has her own TV network now, and she's got all these other celebrities who she's built up as part of her network. But she used her own celebrity to do that, and that's kind of what I'm seeing here with Josh and John and what they're doing, is that John's not interested in coming back in and using his celebrity to make this come back together and then build it into the kind of network that we're talking about. And it sounds like that's kind of the direction that Josh wants to go, where he can bring in multiple voices and help build their audiences and make Simple Programmer more of a wider effect. And so since John's not interested in coming in and doing it, which would probably be the most effective way to do this, then Josh has to do it.
So what I'm saying,
there are other ways to get there, I think. But if Josh steps up and he's able to command at least a good portion of what John provided to the audience, then he can essentially take control, and then he can start spinning out these other things to make sure that it starts to become less about him and more about
Right.
the overall network effect of Simple Programmer.
What
Yeah,
I'm saying is there is only one Oprah and one Tony who have any shot of like, well, Oprah is maybe $1 billion business. Tony is not even $1 billion business. There's two of them in a world that has maybe $2,000 billion businesses. That's the difference of like the celebrity business versus non-celebrity business. The size of
Yeah.
the size and the possibilities out there. Like there's
I hear
so
crickets.
few compared to the biggest.
No one's listening, Manny. No one cares. No, I'm kidding.
I know
I'm
everyone's
kidding.
listening. I know everyone's listening. You guys are concerned about trying to build a celebrity business is all I'm saying. I'm not talking about you anymore. I'm talking to anyone who's listening.
Yeah, no,
So you
no.
go into
I
celebrity business with very open eyes and ears.
yeah, no.
I agree.
I completely agree with what you're saying. The thing is, like, okay, so this is what we've run into: is every time we've tried to just hand something off, it has failed. What works is doing it ourselves, learning, getting a really good knowledge of what is required and what we need, and then finding someone to do that. So, for example, I just had this experience with. So let's say I've been toying with, okay, like maybe I should just go the Udemy route, like just get a bunch of people in, have them produce courses, we sell them for $10. So I've been working with Jason, who is like, I've been talking to him a lot doing this course. Really fired up. Every time I talk to him, I get really excited because his knowledge of the interview process and like getting developers hired is really deep. And he's coached like almost 40. He's almost coached almost 40 people now to all the way through the process and got them jobs at like Dropbox and like significant companies. He put one of his students through the alpha version of this course we're developing, and the guy just got hired. He destroyed his interview at the company where Jason works, and they hired him. So I'm like really fired up. So I goes, okay, Jason, go, like, gave him kind of like a high level overview of what I wanted from the course. Go create this course. Came back to me. Videos were just not there. Like, I was just like, Jason's so dynamic. He's so dynamic in person when I talk to him, and then like he just wasn't coming across in the videos. And he's like, I thought for if anybody could just walk in there and just do this, that it would be him. And so now what we're having to do is I'm having to take a step back. We were going to launch it last month. We're going to launch it at the end of this month. And we're doing it together. Like, I'm hand holding. He's doing the stuff. I'm critiquing it. He's going back and we're iterating on it together. And it's like a ton. It's like, I wrote my email today about the 90-90 rule, which is like the 90% takes you 10% of the time, or, like how the last 10% takes you 90% of the time. And that's what it's been like with this course. And so the idea of Udemy is scalable in theory, but in actual practice, it's extremely difficult to get all those pieces working together. And it would take me, Udemy's probably been around for 15 years and they've only hit it big in the last 2 or 3. I'm guessing. I mean, maybe they're younger than that, but
they're younger than that. Udemy is one of the models. There's so many different models. The College Investor is a different model. Udemy is a different model. Dan Fagilla's model was a different model.
Yeah,
they're all different ways.
We're already doing the College Investor model. Like the affiliate model is like, it's about 20% of our business. But that's just not, like, in this market, in our specific market, that's just not, it doesn't work the same way. But yeah, so with Jason, like, what I'm going to do is we're going to develop this course together. I'm going to launch it. We're going to actually co-host it. So he's going to be doing the content. I'm going to be emceeing all of the, we're going to do live webinars as part of it. And I'm going to MC those because he needs to be in a live, I realize he needs to be in a live setting. He's kind of like John, where John's gotten good at the canned stuff, but naturally, I think, John, like for you, just stepping into the live situation is easy.
John's a natural.
Recording stuff is not as easy. Jason's that way. He doesn't have the 5 years of practice that John has recording stuff. So I'm going to help Jason. So anyway, it's way harder. Like, it's way harder to produce one course that's decent quality is going to take me 2 months of work. So I need to be able to sell that course. I can't sell that course for $10. I need to be able to sell that course for $200 or more. And the only way that I can do that right now is to have the relationship. But as I, once I have that, then okay, so I start the Simple Programmer podcast. Well, a year from now, I find a different host, or we co-host it for a while, and then he takes it over. And so I'm like more. I'm just going to be, and like the community right now. We have almost 250 members in the community, and I'm putting in place an ambassador team of volunteers who will go in and help keep discussions going, welcome people, kind of like a welcoming committee type of thing. But right now, initially I had to be that guy.
Right.
And that's kind of just how I'm envisioning this whole thing working, because it's like when I try to hand it off, it doesn't. When I try to just hand it to somebody and say, go run with this, it doesn't work.
Yeah, but if you hand it off and say, this is what I've been doing, then it's a different story.
Yeah, the ambassadors, like, I kind of figured out how I wanted to welcome people into the community. And then I opened this up and I got like 6 or 7 people that volunteered. And then I wrote up a post. They were like, well, what do you want us to do? And so I wrote up a post with like 4 or 5 things that I've been doing. And they were like, perfect. We know exactly what we need to do. We'll go do this. So, but you kind of have to like build a piece, and then you build the piece with yourself, and then you replace yourself. And then you build the piece with yourself and you replace yourself.
Exactly. And
that's what seems to be working so far.
And that's exactly what we did with the blog, right? So that was like, because it was my personal blog with Simple Programmer. I wrote all the articles. We started replacing like having guest posts and guest writers, and now I don't write any of the articles. Right. So
yeah, I really do not want to be. I don't want my face on the front page of Simple Programming.
Liar.
Look awesome.
What's that?
They look awesome.
Especially with this camera, just take a screenshot right now.
Josh is such a liar. He wants to be all over Simple Programmer everywhere.
I'm just trying to look at what's been working is all. So
there will be no John after Josh has taken over. People will forget who John was.
Yeah. I'm gonna submit requests to Google to replace all instances of John Sonmez with Josh Earl.
There you go.
Find all, replace all.
Yeah.
On the whole, like there is a functionality probably on the WordPress. There's some plugin, find all, replace all.
Yes. Yeah.
Across the board for everything.
Yeah. So I do have a couple things that I wanted to ask
Chuck,
about
sorry, I've just completely monopolized, but go ahead.
No, it's totally fine. I mean, that's what we're here for, is just to kind of rattle the cage a little bit and make sure that, we're all thinking about all of the different things that are involved. So, yeah. I mean, you did mention the podcast thing, and I think it was last week I was reading the book, The One Thing. And I realized that the one thing for me really is this systems for the podcasts.
Yeah.
And so, and in the book, it was interesting because I was like, oh, okay, well, the one thing, right? So I'll just sit down and I'll make sure I get that thing done for the day. I thought that was what the book was about until I read it. And they recommend that you spend 4 hours a day working on your one thing. And I'm like, oh, I see. I figure out what's gonna, what the highest leverage thing is, and then I go do it a lot.
Yeah.
So I cut back the time that I'm spending on my book. I basically have just guaranteed I'm gonna get 1,000 pages or 1,000 words a day. And that way I'll get it done.
Yeah.
And then I have to keep recording the podcasts, though I'm starting to look again at which ones I can safely bow out of. Because I did that before. And then I'm going to be spending the rest of my time building out Podwrench. And I realized that I'm just going to start from the beginning of the process and work my way all the way through. So currently I'm working on, like you said, Josh, setting things up so that people can just come and schedule the podcast. And I already have that. We're moving off of Schedule Once and onto Google Calendar. Google Calendar has appointment slots. And that's a whole lot. That turned out to be a whole lot easier, and I don't need all of the extra features from Schedule Once. And
wait, so Google Calendar, can you use it like so that you can show people a calendar and they can book?
Yep.
How do you? Okay, just tell us how to do that maybe off air. But I'm using another service for that, Calendly, and I would greatly prefer to just have it through Google Calendar. So
yeah. So what you do is when you create a new entry in your calendar, it now gives you the option of making it an appointment slot instead of. You can also mark it as out of office or just a regular appointment. And so you just set it as a appointment slot. You tell it how many how long the appointment slot should be in there, and then it just does it.
This is you guys should do what I'm doing. It's better. It's better. Appointment slots are junk. I'll tell you why. Because every time, when someone sends you an email and they're like, make an appointment, what's your first response? Like, fuck, hey, right? Like, you're like, I don't want to fucking like it, and then you feel like, oh, they're so much more important, right? They think they're so important that you're going to make an appointment with them, right? So I'm using Assistant.2. I'm sure you guys have seen me do this in emails if you've made an appointment.
Yeah.
It sends it in line in the email, right? And they just click the thing that they want right there. So they don't have to go to a site. They don't have to do anything. It's just a Chrome plugin for Gmail. So much better. I get so much of a higher response rate of people because all they have to do, they don't have to go to Schedule One or my site, and it doesn't feel pretentious at all because it's just like, hey, it's just coordinating a time, right? It's not like you're coming to my, like it's in the email. You're not coming to my, my thing to do it.
Kiss the ring.
Exactly. So I don't know. That's my pitch for it. I think Assistant 2 is the best. I'll probably never change it.
I may add that in because the other portion that I want to add is the guest and topic recommendation engine, because I haven't found a system that I really love for that. So anyway, so then you can just send people to a page and they can, upvote and downvote and share ideas with you. But then what you could do is you could just click on, invite a person or invite this person to the show. And then, that would be a good option. But anyway, so I'm working on the invitation portion, but then the next piece is getting all of my hosts, and it'll invite the guest in so that they can send me any prep information I need. So that would be like guest introduction. It would be go look at these links. Here's a video of a talk I gave on this topic, that kind of thing. They can just share all that stuff. And then it'll easily make it so that then the system can send it out to all of the hosts.
Nice.
And say, hey, here's the information to prep for next week's show. And once I have that working, then the other piece that I want to build is once it's recorded. In fact, that piece is already in. You can upload the recording file. So I'm doing it on Zoom, so I just download it from Zoom and upload it to that. And then there will be an editor portal that just has a list of all the shows that have recordings uploaded and ready to go. And then the last piece of it is once it gets published, so it'll handle all the publishing and everything, right? I also want to be able to have you essentially add either a plugin to WordPress or set up some kind of credential through the API, so that when you write the show notes, you can just write it in there, put it into the RSS, just post it to WordPress and schedule it to be published at the right time, so that it all happens and it's all synchronous and it's all in one place. But then as soon as it's published, then it'll email the guest and say, hey, you were on the show, blah, 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 blah. After you record, it'll also send an email to him saying essentially thanks. And, if you want to, send him some swag or something like that, it'll do all that stuff. But just manage the whole process. And then the other piece that I want to build in is just the showrunner piece. And so that would be like, if I'm not the one running the show, it'll say, okay, here are the hosts that said that they were going to show up. Here are all of their introductions, that you can just read. Here's the guest introduction. Here are all of the ads you need to read live, anything like that. And so it's just all there.
Like a packet.
So you just load up the page and then you can just see it. And then you or the other hosts can also be logged in. And as people mention stuff, you can post the links there for the show notes and stuff.
So that's almost like I think I sat in on a radio show one time, like when I was in college, and it seemed like they kind of had a system like that where it was like everything was kind of queued up for the host.
Yeah, but then it's just all automatic, right?
Yeah.
And so, if you're expecting the show to be about an hour long, then you can just say, oh, we expect the show to be about an hour long. And then I'd really like it to just prompt you, okay, it's time to do the next ad read. And that's the
Right.
other thing that I'm going to be changing on my shows is I've gotten some feedback from a few sponsors that quit and then talk to somebody else that I know, which frustrates me to no end. Just tell me if you're not happy with something. Tell me, damn it, tell me. But instead, they're telling this friend of mine, oh, well, when we signed up for a sponsorship, we expected him to do, live ads. Well, nobody freaking told me. I told him that I pre-recorded them and stuck them in there.
Yeah.
So why is this a surprise? Well, apparently it is. So, and I think the
charge a premium for the live ads too.
I've thought about that.
Yeah.
If they want it, if it's something they're wanting and asking for,
Yeah,
it's
definitely.
a thing. Yeah, it's a
Yeah.
way you can. But anyway,
That's true. I worry a little bit about that getting a little more complicated. It might almost be simpler just to do all live ads. But
all live ads is like, I don't know. That's creating a lot of manual work.
well, not if they're live. If they're all live if they just
Yeah.
read them right.
If
on
I
the
just read them
show.
on the call.
Oh, I see. That's true. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah.
And
It's just part of the flow. Then
Yeah, that's true. I guess that makes sense.
it's actually less work. There's less editing and splicing.
Yeah, exactly. So I'm kind of leaning that way. I think I'm going to send an email around to my current sponsors and past sponsors and just basically say, hey, I got this feedback. It seems like this is preferable. And, so starting in October, we're going to start doing live ads.
You've been upgraded to live ads for free.
Yeah.
We've improved your experience.
Yeah,
I
basically.
I got an email this week from QuickBooks saying that they've improved my experience and upgraded my connection to Chase Bank. And the last time they did this, it caused two or 3 weeks of headache for us with PayPal with Simple Programmer.
Oh, geez.
Yeah.
Now, Chuck, with your thing, first of all, I think that's great. I think the one thing, that's a really good book, by the way. But yeah, that's your one thing for sure.
It
that's
is
your one thing, and this
100%.
And then with the podcasting side of it, I wonder, you should look into see if you can integrate with Zencaster or Ringer if they have an API.
Mhm.
Because what would be the ultimate automation for you, and you'd be able to control all these things like the show notes, you could prompt up automatically. But if Zencaster or Ringer, there's probably some other competitors now that the ones who stole our idea,
Yeah.
right? We should have patented that fucker.
Podcast recording.
But if you can get API or white label essentially like with that and integrate that into your workflow, then you can have it so that the recording is in your system so that it's recorded through the browser, and you can prompt for show notes. You can do any of that. I mean, for the reads and all that stuff. And no one has to upload anything, and they don't have to learn how to use Zoom or anything or record. Like, it's just all automatic. That would be a huge value add too.
That's true.
Yes. Chuck,
The
that would
issue-
be killer. That would be absolutely killer.
It would be if I could make it work. I've never been able to get Zencaster to work unless there were just two of us.
Interesting. Okay.
And so, yeah, I completely agree. But yeah. The other thing is I could just build those integrations in, right? So it's like, hey, if you're using Zencaster, I love the idea of white labeling one if it works.
If you could make it so that you could click a button, even if it launched a separate app, like click a button in your app, launches over to some other app, and then automatically pulls in the recording, that would be pretty amazing.
And I think Zoom has, because I'm using Zoom. Zoom has, I'm pretty sure, a what do you call it? It has an API. So
yeah,
I'm pretty sure that once a call ends, I could correlate that with a recording and just pull the.
So there are people that are offering like these concierge podcasting services.
Yeah.
And what you're doing is you're automating all that with software. So they're charging really they're really expensive services. Maybe the one guy I talked to was like, I don't know, he was like probably at least $1,000 a month or more.
Right.
And he was doing all the scheduling and all that stuff too. So if you can automate all the routine work and then have a few people who help with booking,
Yeah,
that's like a
true.
game changer. It's
this
like a
is
game
Blue
changer.
Ocean. This is Blue
Yeah.
Ocean.
So the other book that's pretty similar to Blue Ocean, I think, John, is Simplify by Richard Koch. So this is a proposition simplifier. Like when you dramatically simplify a process, it can increase the demand exponentially.
Right.
So like with one of the examples in the book is like the automobile and Henry Ford. Like he brought the price down low enough, and the demand he cut the price down by like to maybe 20 or 10% of what it was, and the demand increased like like 10,000 fold. Like it was
right. And that's the exact example, like from Blue Ocean as well. He brought the price down to the point where it competed with the horse and carriage, not with other automobiles.
Right.
That was the key, because that expanded the market, because now you took non-customers, you took the whole, right, the automobile industry at that time had high-end models, and they were competing with each other for these, and then they had a very small market. But then when he brought it down to the horse and carriage price level, now he made all of those potential customers, because those people, now he expanded it that way. And it's the same thing I think I could see with the podcasting right now, right? Like concierge podcasting, like podcast done for you service is $1,000 a month, let's say, right? Something like that. I don't know. It's a high price, right? So you have a very small market for that, like of successful podcasts. Podcast hosting is like $10 or $20 a month, right?
Yeah.
If you take the concierge, like, done for you podcast, and you bring it down to compete with the podcast hosting, you will destroy the market, because why would you pay $20 to get podcast hosting when for $40 you can get podcast hosting plus production, plus you're going to get paid from sponsorship, like some, you'll give them a real small percentage, but like you'll have all of these features all for you. That's killer. If you can do that, you'll completely disrupt the market.
Yeah,
that's true. I mean, yeah. Well, and I like the idea of some level of concierge, but the thing is most of the stuff that we're talking about can be automated.
Right. Well, the thing that can't be automated would be finding guests.
Well, even that can be automated. I mean, if they provide you with the names of the people that they want to get a hold of, then
but I mean, yes.
Especially if they have contact information for them. The other thing that is kind of curious is they could also put out, and I'm going to say it out loud. It sounds a little bit sleazy, but I don't think it is. But I could also, so I have a good friend, Tom Schwab, who runs what's it called, Interview Valet, where he actually helps people get on podcasts as guests.
Oh yeah.
And so I could talk to a bunch of a podcast that's looking for a guest on a certain topic, and then I could take a cut of that from them, and line up the guest.
So like a podcast pimp, basically.
More or less.
Pimping of podcasting.
But I'd be the go-between on the other end of it, right, for the podcaster instead of for the guest.
Exactly.
And then
these guys are podcast pimps. You'd be working with the pimps. You'd be the head pimp.
Yeah. There we go.
He would be the referring pimp.
But the thing is that if it screws it up, right? So if it works out that this person's a terrible guest, then if I get a review or two back that say, hey, this wasn't a good guest, then I can go back to Interview Valet or somebody else and say, hey, look, I can't book them on any more shows.
Yeah.
Right.
And things like that. It's also valuable, I think, to them to know that, because then they can give that feedback to their client and say, hey, look, we have a relationship with this guy, and the way you're doing the interviews is turning off his customers. So if you want us to book you on any others, you've got to change up the way you're doing things.
I like it.
So but I love the idea of the concierge, because then it comes down to, I have the name of the person that I want to get on the show, even if it's some big name person, right? And then, you know, they can essentially, I mean, yeah, then I'd have to have somebody go hunt down their email address and, you know, essentially pester them until they get a no. But yeah, the rest of it's all automatable. And honestly, even the outreach is sort of automatable. I mean, people don't like having automated emails sent to them. Hey, will you come on my show? But, you know, you can have a person behind it to interact with them and, you know, automate at least the outreach.
Yeah. I mean, if you can automate 90% of it, you're good.
Yeah.
Like, you'll be able to compete for sure.
Yeah, I don't know if I want to build in the hosting piece, but I could probably white label something with like Libsyn or Blueberry.
Yeah. Of course. Yeah, you're not going to host it for sure. Sure, you're going to use one of their services or something like that.
Yeah,
right.
But it makes a ton of sense, right? If it's $20 a month for hosting, and it's $30 a month, you know, because I get a deal because I'm sending a whole bunch of business their way. So it's $30 a month for somebody to sign up for my service and use the white labeled version of Libsyn or Blueberry or whatever.
Mm-hmm. I want this, Chuck.
It's just like here's a good example of what it.
I want it too, but it's such high leverage.
Yep.
Here's a good example of this exact thing. So, Virgin, right? What's his name? Russell Brunson.
Branson.
Branson.
Richard
Yeah,
Branson.
Richard.
Oh my gosh.
I
Wow.
was like, I know it's not Russell.
Wow,
Yeah.
you guys. Russell Brunson has taken over, man. He'd be so proud if he watched this episode right now. He'd be like, wow, I've done my job. I've lived a good life.
So what he did with T-Mobile, right, is he came in and he basically, like in the US at least, he did this in the European market first, but he said to Sprint, hey, look, we'll use your lines, right? We'll use your network, and we're going to build this brand on top of it, right? And what he did is he came in and he built T-Mobile, which was a better offering, right? Because it was like no, you know, you could do pay as you go, like none of this bullshit that they did, and he did it off of there. And eventually, was it? No, Virgin Mobile, right? He eventually did that with T-Mobile, and then T-Mobile eventually had to buy Virgin Mobile. But essentially, it's the same exact thing. It's like you're using their, like they don't really have a choice because you're going to provide this service. It's better than their service, so they're going to be the backbone of it, right? They're either going to get that value of it, or you're going to go somewhere else and get the value, and that person's going to get the value. So, yeah. But yeah, disrupt.
Well, the thing is like people act like, you know, starting a SaaS or something like that. Like, you know, what we're talking about here. They get all these romantic ideas about it, but honestly, I'm just trying to solve my own freaking problem, right?
Exactly. Yeah.
And then, you know, you guys are pointing out, well, other people have this freaking problem. You know, Josh is over there salivating. Yeah, I wouldn't have to do any of the work. I would just have to show up and talk.
Yeah.
Right. So, and that's what I'm aiming for. But I also wonder then at some point, and this is complete speculation because I really enjoy recording the podcast. But at some point, then do I look at DevChat TV and say, you know what? I just want to be completely in the background and let other people run these shows.
You are on the track, my friend.
Yeah, and I think that's the right track for sure. And then you just create your own meta podcast that is just like you running the whatever you want to talk about, right? It's just like because you're an interesting character, right? You're the podcast network guy, like so. You know what I mean? Like so, you just talk whatever you want. And then you just have your own podcast to fulfill your podcasting itch.
To be perfectly honest, I have 2 shows that I want to do that are essentially that. And if I could do those 2 shows and quit all the rest of these and have them run without me, I would be a happy guy.
And I think
it's not because I don't like doing these other shows, but a lot of times they go well beyond what I really am passionate about. And
I think with what you're doing, like you're already in phase 1, right? Is creating this automation software to solve your own problems. Phase 2 is taking other people's podcasts. Like we were talking about, like you hosting Simple Programmer podcasts, or like, right? So you're kind of doing the concierge, but you're working it off of, you're making the money not off of the podcasts, like of the hosting of it but off of the
sponsorship.
Exactly. So you're getting established ones. But then when you're in phase 2 and you get, like, let's say you get 10 of these under your belt, where you've got 10 other people's co-hosted podcasts, then you continue building the software to solve all of those problems that you're inevitably going to have dealing, because you're right now, you've got a homogenous set of podcasts, right? Because they're all yours. When you start taking on other people's and they have other demands and stuff, now it's going to be heterogeneous, and you're going to actually, from that composite, build the software that solves all those problems, that that X plus 1, right? Or the N plus 1. And then now phase 3 becomes, now you've built this robust enough thing to handle anyone's thing, and now you sell it as a service.
Yeah. Yep. But the other thing is I've also thought about, and I get outreach from book publisher book publishers and stuff. Can we get our authors on your shows? And I've thought about just putting together a podcast that's just like, it's basically tech stuff, and it would just be, hey, look, every time you want to get an author on the show, it's $100. We'll talk to them for 20 minutes, right? And you want to do that? It's just the book show, right? And so it's an extra $400 or $500 a month, but
it's a book about the tech thing.
It'd be a podcast where we just interview tech authors.
Even if you don't really care for the author or the book?
Yeah, it just, people can go see what's coming out. I don't know.
Maybe, because then you lose credibility and trust with the market if you don't really care for that thing.
I will tell you that I have made the offer to, when I know the book author, to have the book author on. Yeah, basically, you can pay, however much, and the publishers won't spring for it at all.
You kill that idea. It's no good. I'll tell you why. Because if you're facing any kind of resistance for like a ridiculously good deal, and it doesn't scale, because at the point where your company is making $1 million a year, are you going to care about, like, the hassle for making an extra 1,000 or 2,000 bucks revenue won't be worth it. It will never scale up more than that.
But I've also thought about approaching like Pragmatic Programmer or something like that, and basically saying, hey, look, guys, why don't you do, because they used to have a podcast, and so I I've thought about approaching them to revive their podcast and find a host, and so I would concierge that part of it, right?
Yes.
We'll do your podcast for you, and you just provide the guests who are your authors.
Exactly.
And they can come, they can come back multiple times. Well, this week we're talking about this section of my book. And that way they can come in, they can talk about what they're an expert on, and, essentially plug the book at the same time.
Right. And then there won't be sponsorship. They'll be the sponsorship.
They'll be the sponsor. Yep.
You'll be the professional jockey, right? For their horse.
Yeah.
That's what, I like that. That's a really good idea. And you could repeat that one multiple times.
All that point is paying the regular host to show up.
In fact, Josh, unless you really want to do a podcast, that would be a model that would work great for Simple Programmer podcast. And I can tell Manny is agreeing with this, because then, then Chuck's finding a host. He's getting the episode, getting everything handled. We're just using the brand name, and then
telling me what you want the show to be about.
Right. But in our case, we'd allow the sponsorship, because we'd want sponsorship, because we don't care if someone else advertises on our. For Pragmatic, they probably don't want sponsors advertising. But in our case, it would be revenue split over sponsorship. But that's I think that's a better model.
Have you guys looked at this podcast called Optimize Daily, which they do like Optimize Daily Business, Optimize Daily Life, Optimize Daily this, Optimize Daily. This guy, all he does, he goes around to all these bloggers and says, hey, I will just read out your blog on my podcast, your blog post on my podcast. And are you cool with that? And I'll give you the backlink for it. I'll tell people where to go to find the complete blah, blah, blah. Are you cool with that? And he just does that, and he collects sponsorship revenue from his podcast, and he provides the backlink, so everyone's happy. Everyone's like, go for it, do it. So, word simple programmer, if you would just read out all of your past blog posts in a fun fashion, that's a huge ass blog, a huge ass podcast that you could get someone to do, and that's it. It would just generate so much traffic and podcast listenership for you guys.
Well, the thing there is we could find somebody, some personality that could go read the blog post and talk about it.
Yeah.
So
or just read the damn thing.
Here's a fundamental difference about the way that I've been thinking about the podcast. And this is actually I've been listening to James Stranko, John. He's got a lot of really good stuff on membership sites. He seems to be the best that I've found on membership. And he views podcasts not as a traffic source, but as a conversion tool. Mm-hmm. And that's kind of how I've been looking at it. Like for me, I don't need more traffic right now. Like we get 300,000 page views a month, and I'm only able to sell 50 to 100 memberships. Like what I need is to sell more memberships, and doubling the blog traffic doesn't, like, that's a long-term thing. And it would increase the number of memberships I sell, but it's way harder to double the blog traffic at this point than it is to go from sell a few more memberships a month from the existing audience. So for me, the podcast is more about deepening the relationship with the 20,000 subscribers I have in the US to get them onto the membership site. That's why I've been thinking about it.
But the membership site, I don't know how James Stranko's membership site works, but I have a feeling he is a different kind of membership site, which is why he needs to build that kind of trust with the audience in order to get into that. In your case, your membership site has nothing to do with you, and that changes everything.
It's pretty well. What I'm doing, I'm actually modeling Copy Chief, which is modeled loosely after James stuff. So Kevin Rogers, who runs Copy Chief, is the guy. So he's taken James's model and done it in copywriting. So James charges several $1,000s a year. Copy Chief is charging $1,000 a year. I'm going to be down a couple levels down from that. But yeah, I do agree that I'm not going to be able to, I'm probably, with the current model, I'm probably not going to be able to charge $3,000 a year. But I have found that, the fact that James Stranko probably has less than 10,000 people on his email list. I have 90,000, and I can only sell a tiny sliver. Out of 90,000, I've converted 250.
Right. So if you're going to do that, then you have to be on there or have your ambassadors run the show.
But again, what I'm saying is a little different. I'm saying these guys, James Stranko is running a personality business in a way that he's saying, when you come into a mastermind, it's still James Stranko mastermind.
Right.
When someone joins Simple Programmer Mastermind, it's got nothing to do with Josh, is what I'm saying. So you having to build that up is a different
It does have to do with me, because they have to believe what I'm saying about the community in order to join.
That's so different than you having to build trust to sell a higher layer. We're talking $100 product compared to if you were to try to sell a $1,000 or $10,000 product. It's a different game selling a $100 product, and the level of trust that is needed for that compared to selling $500 to $1,000 or $10,000 product.
Well, okay, I would say Josh doesn't necessarily have to be the host of the show, right? But reading the blog posts wouldn't work in this case. The credibility in this case for the show would be getting big name authors and software development figures onto the podcast to talk about, the community, the kind of soft skills, more of that kind of, but some tech, but mostly that, because that's the real unique offering of Simple Programmer. But as far as the membership, I do agree though, Manny, with you about the idea that even selling it, the community can sell it, and the community eventually will sell it, and it's like testimonials will sell it, and people writing about the community and those stories and it doesn't
But you have
necessarily
to get
to
it
be.
there. You have to get the flywheel spinning. is the
Yeah,
point.
but you may be able to pull in one of these ambassadors and just say, "Hey, look, I'll pay you to show up for the podcast." Or I mean, there are other options, but yeah, it's at some level, it's going to have to be somebody involved in the paid community.
Yes.
Yeah, if it's a higher price point product, it makes sense to become more visible of a face.
Higher price point is entirely dependent on the market, though. That's the thing.
And also on your personality being able to sell it, like, in the sense,
right.
If they trust you and they want to just associate with you, then they will buy that shit from you.
Exactly, right.
Right?
Yeah, exactly. So, I mean, all I'm saying is that I have a big audience, a huge audience right now. I'm hitting resistance with selling $100 a month or $100 a year membership, and the people that I've connected with deeply are buying it.
Mhm.
So that's true. So I'm saying I need to do more of that right now. When there's 1,000 people in the membership and I've got tons of testimonials and people have with this interviewing or the programming interview course, like I expect we're going to have some really good testimonials and success stories coming out of that. I'm kind of in the mode where I have to do some things that don't scale.
Okay. So here's a question. I'm wondering if John can sell that membership as an affiliate on his YouTube channel and see what happens.
That's interesting but why not just do it on the email list, right? Like if that's the case, why not just have me write an email to the email list? That would be more effective than doing it on the YouTube channel.
Yeah, I mean, John is back.
Well, and in fact, I have been plugging the membership on the. I haven't. I did just recently plug the membership on the YouTube channel. Actually, I remember that one, Josh, that I did the video response to.
Yeah.
I just basically did a screen capture there, like in the membership. Cool. And I was like, by the way, if you're a programmer, I know a lot of you are programmers that are watching this, like you haven't joined the membership, you're crazy. It's an obvious thing that you should be doing.
Is there like a monthly live that you guys would do to bolster this?
Monthly live is not scale. Is not automation.
I know, but whatever you guys are talking about is not automation.
No, it is automation because it can be, right? Like it's like, I mean, all that needs to happen is like email sequences that right now Josh is manually writing emails, but I would assume that he's intending to, cull the best of those and to make that a nurture process where when people come in, they go in and, the whole trust building process happens through that rather than having to constantly be on the treadmill of doing emails. Podcasts is sort of different, but it's also the same thing, like in the fact that Josh doesn't always have to be hosting the podcast. Maybe he does host it from the beginning. Maybe he doesn't host it from the beginning, but eventually someone else can. Like anything that you can outsource is you can automate.
How about this? You guys can actually host a podcast that's just tailored to the community, like a podcast that brings the guests from the community to talk about their specific challenges and frustrations and stuff like that. So that builds trust on the community level. It's not about Josh still. Right. It's about the community. And it's like you get a host, literally hire a host somehow and have him interview different members of the community talking about different things. Got nothing to do with Josh, nothing to do with John, but it's still the community selling itself.
That would, yeah. Like, okay, so you guys have heard Tropical MBA, right?
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
Tropical MBA is sort of that, right? Like it's not quite what you said, but it's sort of that because the whole point of the Tropical MBA podcast is about the Tropical MBA community, right? Mm-hmm. It's like they constantly mention it. Our members, we're doing this retreat, we're doing this thing, right? This came from the forums, right? Like that's the whole thing. Their whole business model is the podcast drives the membership into to be a Tropical MBA person.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that changes the game quite a bit because then again, Josh, you become the kingmaker, not the king, right. And you can like literally have multiple people. You show up on the podcast too, but just as a guest to talk about whatever you're working on, and then other people come in to talk about their specific challenges and how you guys resolve them.
That works too, and I can even pop in on the podcast or two.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Like, because then I'm not hosting it. It's just like, oh, John will be here this week, right? And that would actually probably sell some memberships as well, like knowing that every once in a while.
Well, the people who are really bullish about you and for whatever reason are indifferent about Josh, because I highly doubt that anyone's gonna like just hate Josh, you know, but they won't care about him the same way they care about you. Some of them won't,
Right.
you know, but if they know you're still involved and they can see that, because it's different from Josh saying, oh, I talked to John, or here's a story from John. You know, if you're showing up periodically, you know, you write the periodic blog article and it gets, you know, hey, we got John to write this week, or you know, you show up periodically on the podcast, or you show up periodically if you keep doing YouTube stuff. You know, if Josh starts pushing that kind of YouTube content and you show up on that periodically, then people can see that you're still invested in what's going on. And
Oh, I have. Okay, so there's another one. Bigger Pockets. Bigger Pockets is the other example. Josh Dorkin, who's the founder of Bigger Pockets, he's gone. Doesn't run Bigger Pockets, right? Doesn't run the show anymore. It's Brandon Turner, and now this new guy called David Green or someone. I don't know if you guys follow their podcast, but it's ridiculous, right? That is one of the biggest podcasts in the investing industry, or in on iTunes, completely, right? And every month they just bring in a new, or not every week, they bring in a new member of their community, of the Bigger Pockets community, to talk about whatever, how was their success, what they did, what was the story like, and or anything along those lines. And boom, they just, you know, that podcast is legit, man. And Josh, like, I didn't even feel a blip when Josh Dorkin was gone, and David Green, who's an employee, or who's probably paid as a contractor, who's got nothing to do with the company probably, he's just there as the host of the podcast now.
Well, that's the other thing too that you can do, and this is something that Josh can start doing, is, you know, once you get to the point where you can, you know, you expand the people who are involved in this community, so that it's not just these volunteer ambassadors, but it's actually paid employees, right? And so it's Josh and, you know, the community manager and the content manager and the interview expert and the, you know, and that way, yeah, you get all these people involved in general in Simple Programmer, and then it's the Simple Programmer team, right? And sure, you've got these stars, you know, you've essentially got this boy band, you know, that all play a different, you know, they sing a different part on Simple Programmer. Yeah. But in the end, you know, it's then if Josh takes a back seat, he's like, you know what, I really just want to do the marketing and promotion. I don't want to be out there anymore for whatever reason. Then somebody else can step up, and nobody feels like they've really lost a lot, because they know Josh is still around, but they've got, you know, that other person.
Yep.
They've got the other people that they know and trust.
Yeah. Yeah, I like that.
Anyway, I need to get going soon. We haven't done a 2-hour Entre Programmers in a long time.
Yeah.
I know.
This one was good.
John's been gone.
Should we do our thoughts then for the week?
Yes, thoughts.
Yeah.
So my thought is actually kind of a little bit along the lines of what Chuck was saying. So with the new house, I have inherited about 30 rose bushes, and me being who I am, like if I have rose bushes, they're going to be good rose bushes. So I've been learning about how to take care of them. And one of the most important things with rose bushes is pruning. Like I thought that pruning was just kind of like shaping it and making it look nice. No, pruning is like essential. If you do not prune, it will die. It will get diseased and die. And you have to prune significantly. Like clipping a little bit here and there is not going to do it. You like when you prune, you're taking the plant down by a third or half. Mm-hmm. And if you don't do this, it will essentially suffocate itself. You have to cut branches out of the middle so it can breathe and air out and dry out. And if you don't do this, it will suffocate. So like, I think I've just been thinking about this as I've been doing it. It's like such a great metaphor, because, you know, you do stuff for a while, things grow, and then you have to come in and thin things out, or you just get to a point where you can't breathe anymore. So pruning, you can't just keep adding. It's like, what are you going to prune out? What are you going to eliminate?
Yep. I'm going to piggyback on that because, I mean, the one thing I had like 4 one things before I read the book. If that makes sense, right? And
yep.
it was just, okay, Tuesday I'm going to record all the shows, and Wednesday I'm going to record more of all the shows, and which is still kind of my week. But it's, I'm trying to start this, and I'm trying to get this other thing rolling, and I'm trying to do this other thing, and I'm trying to get this other thing going. And like 1 or 2 of those things I've been able to hand off to Michelle. And just basically, so I'm trying to make one of those things her one thing, and then for me, my one thing is this whole process, right? And so, just by basically being able to relentlessly focus on this stuff, it's made a huge difference. And it doesn't mean I'm dropping everything. I mentioned I'm still writing 1,000 words on my book every day. Incidentally, I did 1,300 words in about 45 minutes right before the show.
Nice.
But it's so I'm not dropping all the other stuff, but my goal is essentially to spend half of my working hours working on podcast production processes, and a lot of that means writing software, and eventually I think I'm going to wind up hiring somebody to do some of this work. But I mean, just getting it done, and just being able to focus on that one thing, I find that it liberates me so that I feel like I'm actually making progress. And the other thing is the one thing they tell you to ask the question, what's the one thing I can do that will make things easier or eliminate the need for them?
Unnecessary.
Make them unnecessary. And this is it. For me, this is it. And so that's why that's getting the focus. And so I'm not working on stuff that doesn't matter anymore. I'm just nailing it. So just relentless focus on the things that really matter. It makes a huge difference.
Let's see. Okay, I got one. I was thinking about this the other day. Variation is the enemy of progress, right? Grind. You have to grind, right? So it's like, whether it be in diet, like people that, as soon as someone is looking up keto recipes or whatever it is, low fat, or whatever high protein recipes, I know that they've failed on their weight loss mission, because they're looking for variation, and that's going to take them off track, and they're not going to be satisfied with the grind. Because when you're looking for variation and you go after variation, you can't grind. And the secret to progress, now it doesn't mean that you don't ever switch things or you don't ever vary things, but if you want to make progress, you have to cut out variation, right? If I want to become a better runner, I need to go and grind and run my 10 miles, even though it fucking sucks, right? If I want to make progress on YouTube, I have to grind out those damn YouTube videos. If you want to level up in a video game, you got to grind out the fucking, killing the enemies and collecting the loot or whatever it is. Whatever you're doing, podcasting, YouTube, blogging, any of those things, grind. Learning a martial art, learning how to punch, right? Like anything that you can do, right? It's like even coding, whatever it is, that deliberate practice is going to be a grind, and variation is what kills the progress, right? So the people that switch, that are like, oh, I want to vary my workouts, they're never the big guys in the gym. Like, it's not going to happen, because you have to do the same thing over and over again, right? The variation people that start businesses and then they're changing direction and they never write a book, or they never do their thing, or they never build their game, or they never build their software, or whatever it is because it's variation. They're looking for different things to do. Grind. All the success that I've ever had, the most success has been when I was grinding shit out.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
I'm with
That
you on
doesn't
that.
sound like a lot of fun. That doesn't entertain me. I'm not entertained.
You need some change. My thought is, don't build a personality business. It sounds very fun, and it is fun for people who really want to do it. but some of us are reluctant personality businesses. Some are like really into personality businesses, and I guess I'm more of the reluctant kind. And the more I think about it, the more I realize I just should not be in the personality business. So don't build a personality business.
Well, I don't have a personality, so that's not a problem for me.
All right, guys.
All right, guys.
Alrighty.
All right. See you next week.
Yep.
See ya.
Bye.
All right, bye.